Hey Harmonizers, welcome to this exciting video. This is Valiente, but that is not me on Valiente. This is somebody that was up at the farm and came up to ride Valiente for the first time. So this is somebody who is not me on him the very first time that it is a different butt in the saddle. So this is an exciting time because they don't have the same cue system potentially as me, even though horses relatively usually have a lot of the similar cues and similar basics. As soon as you put a different person on, it's kind of like, feeling out the waters, testing out what's going on, different person. And so I rode him first a little bit around, but I didn't actually do the mattress first, and they were able to do it. And then they didn't actually do any groundwork before they got on. They kind of got on, and so here you can see Valenti's kind of looking a little bit at. I think the little hoopy thing on the side was blowing in the wind a little bit, and so she didn't really know 100%, what he was used to doing. And this is normal. This is, a horse that's, green. He hasn't had anybody else on his back. He trusts me. He's not sure if he can trust this person. And so he's kind of like, oh, I don't know, like that's a little unsure. And she handles it really nicely, does a little circle to get his focus back, reapproaches, and walks by. And he's like, okay, and just walks on. And so this is really good because he's not entirely sure who in this world he can trust. And he's got to discover, is this human somebody who knows the cues that Lindsay does, and are they going to expect the same thing of me? So it's a bunch of different things to work out a little bit. And she's doing a fantastic job riding him on a loose rein, and they're just kind of getting to know each other a little bit, walking around. And she started off with some obstacles and moving on to riding by this little area that he spooked at a little bit, going the other way, and walks past in this direction with a tiny little look at it, but is okay. And I always like to think about horses as if we have to date each other. We have to get to know each other. And just like with people, horses are going to have different levels of comfort of when they're ready to do things with other people or other horses. And it's going to depend on a lot of different factors. And we can't group all horses or all people into one group. We're all different. And so right now he's kind of dating this person. He's kind of figuring out, hey, how do you move? Do we move together? Do we get along okay? Are we on the same page? And horses really want to know that you're on the same enough page that, they're not going to hurt you, that they can trust you, that, you're not going to hurt them, not going to scare each other, and kind of have a mutual level of respect. They want to make sure that, you're somebody that's not going to freak out on them for no reason. So they walk around a little bit, get to know each other, and then off into the trot they go. And he's going around, riding right past that little spot that initially he had a little look at when she got on. And this is one of the things that I love about Valiente is even though something might bother him, as long as you're just patient and kind with him, he's very forgiving and lets things go. He doesn't hold on to, ooh, that's like a scary spot or stuff like that. He can just, get going and move on. So it's kind of funny because he's like, what, are we going over those boxes or not? So she goes over the little poles there, did her little trot. It's going to carry on a little bit and play around in different directions, playing around with some different buttons and cue systems. How we sit with our hips is going to impact how he reads those transitions a little bit. So with me, I do a lot of stopping with him without pulling on my reins, just by sitting down and exhaling and letting my seat go heavy. But he also has been learning how to be soft with the reins and the contact as well. So I always think it's valuable when a horse has more than one cue. And when it comes to having a horse that's going to be ridden by different people or be ridden by people who maybe aren't super high performance end, it's sometimes good not to have too many buttons installed on the horse or not too precise or confusing, because then it's going to be easier for them to get mismatched. So we want to keep things pretty easy to understand, which means staying pretty basic in the cues and now having multiple cues to understand the same thing. So that way, if something's not working, you have other options to get to. So anyways, they're going around. They did the bridge just fine. Gonna trot by here. Remember, this is the little spot he startled at earlier, and now he's trotting by totally fine there. So that's really, really nice. And they're going around, and you can see a little bit of inconsistency in his pace. Like he slows down a little bit, he speeds up a little bit. And that to me is just, two beings, not one horse, sorry, one horse and one human, just not really getting each other just yet. They're getting to know each other's rhythm. If she is out of sync a little bit, he'll slow down, speed up. He's not entirely sure what she's after. But it also tells me that Valiente is trying to figure out what she's saying and being really respectful and listening to the cues that she's offering. So I really love this, and she does a fantastic job of not choking up on the reins. So choking up on the reins is an expression of usually when people get scared or nervous about what's going to happen, getting really, really short on the reins. And then it makes the horse almost get more anxious because they're wondering, why the heck are you so short on those reins? But she does a really job of just keeping them nice and relaxed and really just kind of going with the flow. So I missed the transition into canter there, but you get to see she's going for a little canter on Valiente and doing a fantastic job. They did do a bunch more trotting around before they got to this point where she felt comfortable enough to take him for a canter. So I was pretty happy with that he's going around. Really nice little canter for her there. He's thinking, hey, are you going to give me a cookie, lady? That was a pretty nice lap of canter, he's thinking. But yes, Valente loves his cookies, so he's got to have a couple cookies during a session. Keeps him motivated and happy and doing all sorts of good stuff, and just makes it a really pleasant experience for him. Who doesn't want to get paid, right? So they're going around a little bit, little change of direction here. And it's funny, he was doing this weird thing where I've been practicing when things get scary that we side pass to them. So then he started doing this thing where instead of going forward, he's like, oh, look, we could just side pass closer to the wall. Wouldn't that be a happy thing instead? We could just go get nice and snuggly with these scary things over here. So as cute as that is, it's like, okay, nobody. Remember, you still have to go forward and do things that are, a little bit more exercise. Get your heart rate up a little bit and get going. So he gets going there a little bit. And in a second, we're going to see a little bit of a spook is coming up. And I'm not sure what happened, if it was a noise or whatnot. So here he kind of looked a little bit at the board. And so I tell her, go ahead and side pass him over to it. And then just kind of breathe. I don't always give him a reward. And there you can see he was kind of confused, and she kind of gave him a little bit of a, not even a big kick, but just a kick to say like, hey, get going. And then I think that kind of made his energy level go up a little bit. So then this area that he did spook at a little bit at the beginning of the ride, it was almost like he got on high adrenaline from the corner where he side passed up to it totally fine. And then I think there was just a little bit of miscommunication, and then he got a little bit worried, and then his anxiety levels gone up a little bit, and then his brain, got a little bit fried, so to speak. And when I say fried, I just mean his nerves have gone up, and then therefore he's not thinking as calmly as he was before. So even through all of that, he doesn't do anything awful. He doesn't do anything bad. He doesn't balk or rear or bolt. He startled a little bit, and then she circled him a little bit, and I said, just do the little sideways over towards it again, and just take a moment to breathe and relax, and then you can go on when you're ready. But I try not to let my horses stop and stare and gawk at things, because I just find it's not a practical solution for most things when you're trail riding or showing or competing. Instead, I want to teach my horses that they cannot look and not touch. And so I actually did a video on that pretty recently. If you didn't already watch it, it's the all-around game where I go into a little bit more detail about that. So she side passes over a little bit to it, and then carries on a little bit. And keep in mind for Valente, this was actually a pretty long riding day because I rode him first, not super long, but probably like 15 minutes or so. And then she got on and rode him. And of course, it takes time to feel comfortable with each other. So she was probably on him for, I don't know, I want to say 30 minutes or so, which is a longer riding session than I typically do because normally I'm rushing back before my little daughter wakes up. And then, so I'm usually keeping my rides to like less than 30 minutes. So to be ridden by me and then be ridden by her, and for a longer period of time, he was starting to get a little bit more tired, and we could tell that he was mentally kind of saying like, "Oh, I'm not used to working this long." He was looking for the answer of how he could be done. So we're just having a little powwow there where I'm giving her a little bit of a strategy for like what to do next because she's not entirely sure if she wants to ride past that little area where he spooked, and she also wanted to try like getting him to go forward again, like getting him to do some trotting and stuff again to make sure they end on a forward note. So you can see Valente's kind of like, can't we be done? Like, this is a really long ride for me. Again, he doesn't do anything bad or awful. Just, you can tell he's saying like, are we almost done yet? Like, geez, this is a long one. So the advice that I give is that we can't work on two things at once in most scenarios with horses. We need to choose one. So you either need to work on his confidence and just ride past the little area where he was upset and just keep it at a walk and stay relaxed, or past the area. So there she cut the corner of where the like spot was where he spooked a little bit. And then you can work on your going forward and your trotting, but try not to combine the two at the same time. Break it down into steps with the horse. So either work on one or the other, and then once you have one of those working well, sometimes you work on both individually well before you combine them, but sometimes you can just work on one, get it better, and then you can work on the other one. So this time she's walking by the area and just seeing how she does there. And you can see he walks by the door and he's okay there. So she's slowly kind of advancing her area to where he had his little startle. So not in the area where sorry, my talking is getting all mumbled up. Not in the area where he startled. She asked him to trot, and that gave him a chance to get going forward first. She already walked that little area, and then she trotted by. So she didn't ask him to trot in the area where he was scared to start with. Instead, she broke it down into steps for him of we walked by the little area, then she trotted a little deeper, and there you can see she finished by trotting kind of right past the area where he startled a little bit. So then doing a little bit of backup there. So that's looking really, really good, I think, where he went from a pretty decent startle and then was okay with her after the fact. So I'm really happy with how he did with a new person for the very first time. You can let me know what you think in the comments, what you thought about Valente with a new person for the first time and how they did together. So I'm pretty happy, and thanks for watching.